All right, now we have all the tools we need to factor any polynomial function with a degree higher than 2. So we're going to factor x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. So the first thing I always do is I'm going to list the possible factors using the rational root theorem. So the possible factors are the factors of the constant, which are plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, and plus or minus 6, because the constant's 6. The leading coefficient in this case is 1. Whenever the leading coefficient is 1, you don't have to worry about dividing by anything. So we're just going to take these and sub them in until we find one that equals 0. So I'm just going to use Desmos to do this. I'm going to test f of 1. I get negative 8. F of negative 1 equals 0. So then there it is. F of negative 1 equals 0 tells me that x plus 1 is the first factor. So now that we've found a factor, we're just going to divide it out using synthetic division. So I'm going to take the original polynomial, x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6, divided by x plus 1. And this step, like just showing what I'm actually dividing, you don't usually do this. You can usually just jump right into the synthetic, but this is just kind of showing all the steps. All right, because I'm dividing by x plus 1, I put a negative 1 outside my little box, and then the coefficients across the top. So 1, 2, negative 5, negative 6. I'm just going to dot that negative 6 off. First number always just falls through, so that's 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 2 plus negative 1 is 1. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Negative 5 plus negative 1 is negative 6. Negative 1 times negative 6 is positive 6. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. So it's always a good check. You should always, because it's supposed to be a factor, the remainder should be 0. If you don't get a 0 at the end there, then you probably made a mistake somewhere. All right, so what this means is that we now know that x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals x plus 1, what we divided out, times the quotient, which is x squared plus x minus 6. So just remember, because it was an x cubed divided by x, that's why I know the highest power is x squared. Now we just got to factor that quadratic and we're done. And this one, because it's x squared and not a 2x squared or 3x squared, I know I can use just a simple AM method. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to 1. Well, multiplying to negative 6, 3 times negative 2, and adding to 1 is 3 plus negative 2. So there are two numbers. So this factors at x plus 1 times x plus 3 times x minus 2. Now we'll go into how can we check our solution. So one way is you could expand this completely. Another way is you can actually graph this on Desmos and just find the zeros. So when you graph it on Desmos and find the zeros, I see that the zeros are negative 3, negative 1, and positive 2. The zeros, again, are always opposite of our factors. So then as long as those are opposite, we know we got it right. So we're perfect.